The flash popped like a gunshot in the dim living room, freezing Joseph in mid-laugh. His arm slung casually around his sister's shoulder, while his free hand clenched the beer bottle so tight the glass threatened to shatter. But it wasn't the light that burned into his retinas. It was the reflection in the bay window behind them, where Charles stood frozen on the porch, snowflakes melting on his dark hair, his eyes wide with the kind of hurt that no apology could thaw. "Joe! Who the hell is that?" His mother barked from across the room, her voice slicing through the holiday cheer like a knife through wrapping paper. And in that split second, Joseph knew the lie he'd built his life on was crumbling faster than the gingerbread house on the coffee table. Joseph Harlan had always been the good son, the one who mowed the lawn without being asked, who aced his engineering exams at Purdue, and who came home to their modest ranch-style house in Bloomington, Indiana, every Christmas without fail. At 28, he was the vice president of operations at a mid-sized manufacturing firm in Indianapolis, the kind of job that paid for his sleek condo downtown and the occasional weekend getaway to Chicago. But beneath the pressed khakis and the easy smile, Joseph carried a secret heavier than the antique family Bible his father kept on the mantel, a secret named Charles Ellis, the man who'd stolen his heart over a spilled latte at a campus coffee shop 8 years ago. It started innocently enough, back in their junior year. Joseph was cramming for finals in the library, his notes a chaotic sprawl of circuit diagrams and stress fractures, when Charles slid into the seat across from him, all tousled brown curls and mischievous green eyes. "You look like you could use a lifeline," Charles had said, pushing a steaming cup of black coffee across the table. "Or at least caffeine that doesn't taste like regret." Joseph glanced up, expecting the usual bro-dude interruption. But there was something in Charles's grin, open, unapologetic, that made his pulse stutter. They talked for hours that night, about everything from quantum mechanics to the hypocrisy of small-town football rivalries. By dawn, Joseph had confessed his doubts about fitting into the straight-laced world his parents had mapped out for him. Marry Emily from church, pop out a couple kids, coach Little League on weekends. Charles didn't flinch. "The world's big enough for all of us, Joe. You just gotta claim your corner." That was Charles, fearless, a theater major with dreams of Broadway spotlights and a laugh that could disarm a room. He grew up in the bustling chaos of Detroit, son of a single mom who waitress doubles and still managed to belt show tunes in the kitchen. Gay? Sure. He'd been out since high school, marching in pride parades with glitter on his cheeks and zero fucks to give. But with Joseph, he learned patience, the art of stolen kisses in the back of lecture halls and midnight drives to nowhere, where they'd park under starless skies and whisper futures that felt impossible. For years, it worked. Joseph introduced Charles as his best friend from college, the guy who crashed on his couch during visits and fixed the leaky faucet with a wink and a toolbox. At family barbecues, Charles charmed the aunts with stories of his latest audition tapes, deflecting questions about his love life with jokes about Married to the Stage. Joseph's parents, Harlan and Margaret, adored him. Harlan even offered him a summer internship at the plant, blind to the way Charles's hand lingered a beat too long on Joseph's knee under the picnic table. Emily, Joseph's high school sweetheart turned platonic confidant, knew the truth. She'd caught them once, tangled in Joseph's dorm bed, and simply hugged him tighter, whispering, "Your secret's safe, but don't let it eat you alive." But secrets have a way of fermenting, turning sweet into sour. By their 5th anniversary, marked with a quiet dinner at a hole-in-the-wall Italian joint in Indy, where Charles proposed with a ring hidden in a tiramisu, Joseph's resolve was fraying. Harlan's health was declining, The emphysema from 40 years in the factory was stealing his breath, one cough at a time. "I need you here, son," he'd rasp during their weekly calls. "Family sticks together. That's the Harlan way." Margaret, ever the pillar, started dropping hints about settling down, her eyes flicking to Emily's engagement announcement in the church bulletin. Joseph nodded along, the ring on his finger from Charles feeling like a shackle and a lifeline all at once. That Christmas Eve, the snow fell thick and relentless, blanketing Bloomington in a hush that amplified every creak of the old house. Joseph arrived early, arms laden with gifts, his SUV's tires crunching over fresh powder. Charles was supposed to stay in the city, working late on that script, but Joseph had caved to a moment of weakness, inviting him for a quick drop-off of presents. "Just park down the block," Joseph had texted, heart pounding. "In and out. No drama." Charles pulled up as the family was midway through eggnog and Nat King Cole on the stereo. He knocked softly, a bottle of Harlan's favorite bourbon in one hand, a wrapped box of monogrammed cufflinks in the other, subtle nods to the man who'd become a surrogate father. Joseph met him at the door, the cold air slapping his face like a warning. "You came anyway," he murmured, pulling Charles into a hug that lingered too long, inhaling the familiar scent of pine and sandalwood cologne. "Couldn't miss seeing your ugly sweater collection," Charles teased, but his eyes were serious, searching. "Or you. Merry Christmas, love." They slipped inside, Charles hanging back in the foyer while Joseph dove into the fray, helping Margaret baste the ham, trading barbs with his sister Lisa about her latest divorce. The camera came out around dessert. An old Polaroid Harlan insisted on for real memories. Not those damn phone pics. Everyone gathered. Lisa and her kids, Emily with her new fiancé, Margaret beaming beside Harlan's oxygen tank. Joseph positioned himself on the edge, smile plastered on, when the flash went off. And there, in the window's reflection, was Charles still on the porch, having stepped out for a smoke, his silhouette unmistakable against the swirling snow. The photo developed slowly, the image blooming like a bruise, the family in focus, but that ghostly figure behind, hand pressed to the glass as if reaching in. "Who the hell is that?" Margaret's voice cracked the silence, her finger jabbing at the print. The room froze. Joseph's stomach plummeted. Harlan squinted, coughing into his fist. Lisa snatched the photo, her eyes narrowing. "Joe? That's Charles, isn't it?" The air thickened, eggnog turning to ash in Joseph's mouth. He could feel Charles's presence like a phantom limb, just beyond the door. "It's nothing," he started, voice thin. "Just a friend." But the lie died on his lips as the front door creaked open. Charles stepping in, snow-dusted and defiant, his gaze locking on Joseph's with a plea and a promise. "Actually," Charles said softly, his voice steady as the winter wind, "it's everything." The room erupted in a cacophony of gasps and clattering silverware, the Polaroid fluttering to the carpet like a fallen leaf. Joseph's mind raced, fragments of excuses colliding, college buddy, wrong house, trick of the light, but Charles was already moving, his boots leaving wet prints on the faded Persian rug, closing the distance with the grace of someone who'd rehearsed this scene in nightmares. Harlan's cough rattled like loose gravel, Margaret's hand flying to her throat as if to choke back a sob, and Lisa, God, Lisa, stared at Joseph with eyes that mirrored his own, betrayal blooming there like ink in water. "Joe," she whispered, What have you done? Charles stopped beside him, close enough that Joseph could feel the chill radiating off his coat, a stark contrast to the fire roaring in the hearth. Mr. and Mrs. Harlan, Charles said, his voice pitched low and even, the actor in him taking the stage. I didn't mean to crash your holiday. But since the cat's out of the bag or the reflection, I guess, maybe it's time we talked. He extended the bourbon bottle like an olive branch, but Harlan waved it away, his face purpling with effort. Talk? Talk, Margaret echoed, rising unsteadily, her apron twisted in her fists. She'd always been the soft one, the baker of pies and sender of care packages. But now her eyes blazed with a fury Joseph had only seen aimed at telemarketers. 8 years, Joseph. 8 years you've brought this man into our home, let him eat at our table, and you never said a word? What are we to you? Props in some double life. Joseph's throat closed, words jamming like faulty gears. He wanted to grab Charles's hand, to anchor himself in the warmth he'd hidden for so long, but his arms hung limp, traitorous. Mom, it's not like that. Charles is. He's my. The word boyfriend stuck, a stone in his esophagus. Best friend. That's what he'd always said. Safe. Deniable. Your roommate, Lisa spat, scooping up her kids, who blinked owlishly from the couch. Emily, did you know? Tell me you knew and spared us this farce. Emily, bless her, stood her ground beside her fiancé, who looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. I knew, she admitted quietly, her voice a lifeline in the storm. And it's not a farce, Lisa. It's love. Real as yours or mine. The word love hung there, fragile as the ornaments on the tree, and for a heartbeat, Joseph thought it might stick. Charles's fingers brushed his, a ghost of reassurance. But then Harlan wheezed. Out. Both of you. Now, his eyes, watery and rimmed with defeat, fixed on Joseph. I raised you better than lies, son. Charles stiffened, but Joseph shattered. He mumbled apologies, incoherent pleas, as he herded Charles toward the door, the family's stares boring into his back like branding irons. Outside, the snow had thickened, muffling the world, but not the slam of the door behind them or the muffled sobs filtering through the frosted glass. Charles turned, cupping Joseph's face with gloved hands. Hey, breathe. It's out. We can handle this. But Joseph wrenched away, pacing the driveway, breath fogging in frantic bursts. Handle it? My dad's dying. Charles. He can't. He won't understand. This ruins everything. The words tasted like bile, and he hated himself for them, for the fear that coiled tighter than ever. Charles's face fell, the hurt from earlier deepening into something raw, irreparable. You think I don't know ruin? Charles shot back, voice cracking for the first time. I gave up auditions in New York to be here, Joe. For us. And now you're ashamed? After everything. Joseph stopped, snow soaking his loafers, the cold seeping into his bones. He thought of the years they'd carved out in shadows, lazy Sundays in his condo, binge-watching Queer as folk marathons, the time Charles nursed him through mono with homemade soup and bad puns, the quiet vow under Detroit's midnight sky, rings exchanged in a moonlit park. But those memories felt distant now, eclipsed by the Harlan legacy, church on Sundays, family first, No deviations from the script. I'm not ashamed, Joseph lied, pulling Charles into an embrace that was half apology, half desperation. I need time. Please. Go back to the city. I'll fix this. Charles held him a moment longer, then pulled back, eyes glistening. Time's what got us here, Joe. Hiding like thieves. He pressed a kiss to Joseph's forehead, soft as snowfall, then walked to his car, taillights blurring red in the flurry. Joseph watched until the headlights vanished, the house lights mocking him from the porch. He returned inside alone, the family arrayed like a tribunal. Harlan had retreated to his recliner, oxygen mask hissing, while Margaret dabbed her eyes with a napkin. Lisa paced, arms crossed. Start talking, Joseph. All of it, and so he did, haltingly at first, then in a rush the coffee shop meet-cute, the first kiss in a rain-soaked parking lot, the way Charles's laugh could chase away the darkest days. He spoke of fear, of love's quiet rebellion against a world that demanded conformity. Emily nodded along, her fiancé shifting uncomfortably, but it was Harlan's silence that cut deepest. When Joseph finished, voice hoarse, his father removed the mask, exhaling slowly. Son, Harlan said, each word labored, love ain't about who it's with. It's about truth. You owed us that. He paused, glancing at Margaret, who nodded faintly. But blood's thicker. We'll figure it. Relief flooded Joseph, tentative as dawn, but it was laced with guilt. He texted Charles an apology. I love you. Give me a week. The reply came hours later. Kurt, don't make promises you can't keep. The days blurred into a tense limbo. Joseph shuttled between the house and the hospital, where Harlan's latest scan showed shadows creeping into his lungs. Margaret thawed slightly, serving Charles's favorite pecan pie at breakfast with a muttered, "He likes this, right?" Lisa grilled him over coffee, her anger giving way to reluctant empathy. I hid my first affair from Mom for months. Glass houses. Ha! But the fracture lingered, a hairline crack in the foundation. Charles, meanwhile, threw himself into work, landing a callback for a regional production of Rent, his texts growing sparse. Proud of you, Joseph wrote, but the enthusiasm felt hollow, stretched thin by the distance he'd imposed. On New Year's Eve, alone in his condo with a bottle of champagne and the TV droning countdowns, Joseph scrolled through old photos, Charles in a Santa hat, Joseph asleep on his chest during a road trip to the Smokies. The ring on his finger caught the light, a reminder of vows unspoken. Then, the call came at midnight. Harlan, short of breath, demanding Joseph come home. Family meeting, he gasped. Bring the boy. Heart slamming, Joseph sped through the night, snow chains rattling. Charles met him there, summoned by a pretext, his jaw set but eyes soft. They arrived together, unspoken allies, stepping into the living room where the family waited, not in anger, but exhaustion. Harlan, propped on pillows, held the Polaroid, thumb tracing the ghostly figure. We owe you an apology, he said gruffly, Margaret nodding beside him. Hid from us? Yeah. But we hid too, afraid of losing you to a world we didn't understand. He beckoned Charles forward. Sit. Tell me about that theater dream of yours. As Charles spoke, animated and alive, Joseph watched his family lean in, the ice breaking. Laughter bubbled up, Haley's wide-eyed questions about Uncle Charles's play, Lisa's teasing about stealing my brother's best lines. For the first time, it felt possible, a bridge, rickety but real. But betrayal lurks in the unlikeliest corners. As dawn pinked the sky, Joseph's phone buzzed. A text from Emily's fiancé, forwarded from an anonymous source. A blurry photo, time-stamped months ago, of Joseph and Charles kissing in the park. Family first, right? The message read. Or blood spills secrets. The text burned in Joseph's pocket like a lit fuse, but he shoved it down, focusing on the fragile piece unfolding in the living room. Harlan was dozing now, his snores a ragged symphony under the crackle of the fire, while Charles animated Haley with tales of stage fright and standing ovations. Margaret hovered, refilling mugs with decaf, her glances at Joseph a mix of wariness and wonder. "He seems decent," she murmured, stirring sugar into her cup. "Why hide him, Joe? We're not monsters." The question landed like a punch, and Joseph swallowed hard, the anonymous text a thorn twisting deeper. "Fear, Mom." Plain and stupid fear. He wanted to spill it all, the poison message, the dread of more fractures. But dawn was breaking, and for once, the house felt whole. Charles caught his eye from across the room. "Mouthing you okay?" Joseph nodded, forcing a smile. But inside, the storm brewed. The next weeks were a tentative dance. Harlan stabilized enough for short walks in the yard, Charles tagging along with bad dad jokes that coaxed rare chuckles from the old man. "You know, back in '68, I protested the draft," Harlan confessed one afternoon, leaning on his cane as they watched squirrels raid the bird feeder. "Hid it from my pa too. Thought it'd break him." Charles nodded, sharing stories of his mom's pride marches, and slowly, threads wove between them, gruff respect, a shared stubbornness. Joseph threw himself into the repair work, bringing Charles to Sunday dinners openly now, his hand on the small of Charles's back a quiet claim. Lisa warmed fastest, dragging Charles shopping for straight guy camouflage at the mall, emerging with flannel shirts and eye rolls. Even Emily's fiancé, Tom, thawed over beers in the garage, admitting, "Looked up rent after that story. Kinda gets it." But the text lingered, a shadow Joseph couldn't shake. He traced it to a coworker, Mike, bitter over a promotion Joseph got, who'd overheard bar talk and dug for dirt. "Family first," Mike had sneered in a follow-up call, voice oily. "Or I send it to your dad." The church. Hell. The paper. Blackmail. The word tasted like rust. Joseph paid at first $500 here, a bonus at work there, but it escalated. Mike's demands a vampire's thirst. Charles noticed the strain, the late nights Joseph spent staring at spreadsheets that didn't add up. "Talk to me," he'd urge, tracing circles on Joseph's chest in bed. "We're in this now." No more solos, but Joseph couldn't. Not when things were finally mending. He confided in Emily instead. Her advice sharp: "Cut the snake's head off, Joe. Tell Harlan yourself, on your terms." She was right, but fear glued his tongue. The photo wasn't just a kiss. It was evidence of a life Harlan was only beginning to accept. One wrong move, and the bridge would burn. Spring unfurled in Bloomington, dogwoods blushing pink against the endless blue, and with it came Harlan's 60th birthday. The family planned a bash at the VFW hall, catered brisket, a karaoke machine for Lisa's off-key belting, and a slideshow of baby Joseph in footy pajamas. Charles helped set up, stringing fairy lights with Haley on his shoulders, his laughter echoing off the rafters. "This is us," he whispered to Joseph amid the chaos, stealing a kiss behind the dessert table. "Real. Don't let the ghosts haunt it." The party swelled, neighbors and cousins milling with plastic cups of punch, the air thick with cigar smoke and nostalgia. Harlan held court in his wheelchair, regaling tales of factory heydays, Charles at his elbow like a co-conspirator. Joseph watched, chest aching with a joy he'd deferred too long, until Mike slunk in uninvited, nursing a beer in the corner, eyes like slits. Panic spiked. Joseph cornered him by the bathrooms. "You weren't on the list." "Leave," Mike smirked, pulling out his phone. $5,000. Harlan. Wired by morning. Or this. He flashed the screen. The kiss photo, now photoshopped with Harlan's church logo watermarked. Goes viral. Local hero's son in scandal. Poetic. Ha! Rage boiled over. Joseph lunged, fists clenched, but Tom appeared, hauling him back. "Easy, man." "Not here." Mike sauntered off, chuckling, and Joseph slumped against the wall, breath ragged. Betrayal wasn't just Mike's. It was his own, for letting the secret fester into this monster. He found Charles on stage, crooning "My Way" into the mic, the crowd whooping. Harlan beamed, clapping offbeat, and in that moment, Joseph decided truth. Now. He climbed the steps, snatching the mic mid-chorus. "Dad," he said, voice amplified and trembling. "I need to say something. About love. About us." The room hushed. Charles stepped back, eyes wide, as Joseph poured it out, the hiding, the fear, the blackmail that threatened to undo them. "Mike's been extorting me." With this, he held up his phone, the damning image projected on the screen behind for all to see. Gasps rippled, but Joseph pressed on. "I hid Charles to protect you all, but it poisoned everything. No more. He's my partner. My future. And if that breaks us, at least it'll be honest." Silence stretched, eternal, until Harlan wheeled forward, gripping Joseph's hand. "Fool boy," he rasped, tears carving tracks down weathered cheeks. "You think a picture scares me? I've faced worse in the mills." He turned to the crowd, voice booming. "This here's my son. And Charles' family now. Anyone got a problem? There's the door." Applause erupted, tentative then thunderous, Mike slinking out like smoke. Charles pulled Joseph into a crushing hug, whispering, "You did it. God, you did it." But as confetti rained and cake was cut, Joseph's phone buzzed again. Not Mike, but a detective's number. Emily's fiancé, turned out, had tipped off the cops. Mike was arrested that night for extortion, his scheme unraveling like cheap thread. Relief crashed over Joseph, but it was bittersweet. Harlan's health dipped post-party, the stress a trigger, landing him back in the ICU. Joseph and Charles kept vigil, tag-teaming hospital coffee and bad vending machine dinners. "Worth it?" Charles asked one midnight, head on Joseph's shoulder. "Every scar," Joseph murmured, kissing his temple. "But what if?" "Don't," Charles cut in, fierce. "We're Harlan's now." Tough as nails. Summer hummed in, sticky and alive, with barbecues where Charles flipped burgers and Harlan critiqued his technique. Joseph proposed properly then, on the back porch swing, ring gleaming in firefly light. "Marry me?" out loud. This time, Charles laughed through tears. "Took you long enough, engineer boy, but autumn brought shadows." Harlan's scans worsened, the emphysema claiming ground inch by inch. "Promise me," he wheezed during a lucid afternoon, gripping both their hands. "You'll live loud. For the both of us." Joseph nodded, throat tight, as Charles squeezed back. Partners in grief, in grace. The end came swift. A pneumonia flare in October. Harlan slipping away with Margaret at his side. Joseph and Charles in the hall, holding vigil. At the funeral, the church overflowed. Factory buddies, theater friends Charles flew in. Even Mike's judge reading a letter of remorse. Harlan's eulogy, penned by Joseph, spoke of hidden truths unearthed, love's quiet revolutions. "He taught me," Joseph said, voice steady, Charles's hand in his. "That family isn't blood, it's choice." In the cemetery, under gray skies, Charles leaned in. "Proud of you," but as they turned to leave, a final betrayal waited. Harlan's will, read in the lawyer's office, left the house to Margaret, the business shares to Joseph with a codicil. To Charles, it read, "My tool shed and the '68 Mustang. Fix what's broken, son." Tears fell, laughter bubbled. Betrayal? No legacy. A final act of acceptance. Winter circled back, softer this time, the snow a gentle shroud over Bloomington's bare branches. Joseph and Charles moved into the old house, Margaret insisting, too big for one old bird, her way of weaving them tighter into the family tapestry. The place hummed with change. Charles's scripts scattered on the kitchen table, Joseph's blueprints pinned to the fridge beside Haley's crayon masterpieces. They fixed the creaky porch steps together, Charles wielding the hammer with theatrical flair, to the nails of our domestic bliss, while Joseph measured twice, cut once, his engineer's precision a counterpoint to Charles's chaos. Marriage planning became their anchor amid the grief. No grand affair. They opted for a backyard ceremony in June, wildflowers and whiskey toasts under string lights. Lisa officiated, ordained online for the gig, her vows laced with sibling snark. "Joseph, you promised to love him through oil changes and bad hair days. Don't screw it up." Emily teared up, Tom clapping Charles on the back like a brother. Margaret danced with Haley to an old Sinatra record, whispering to Joseph, "Your father would have loved this." He did, in his way, but harmony breeds its own tempests. Charles's callback turned into a lead role in Chicago's off-Broadway scene. A 6-month run in Angels in America, the kind of break that could catapult him to the lights he'd chased since Detroit. "It's now or never, Joe," he said over takeout pad thai. "Eyes alight. This could be it." Joseph's fork paused mid-air, the celebratory buzz souring. 6 months? We're building here. The house, Dad's legacy." He gestured vaguely, the weight of Harlan's toolshed pressing like an unspoken plea. Charles's face fell, the fork clatter echoing his disappointment. "Building what? A shrine to Schutz? I love you, but I'm not your anchor chain." The word stung, echoing Joseph's old fears, and the argument spiraled, accusations of selfishness, concessions to small-town gravity. Charles stormed out to the porch, Joseph following, the night air crisp with unsaid regrets. I'm scared, Joseph admitted finally, sinking beside him on the swing. Losing Dad gutted me. What if Chicago takes you away for good? Charles softened, pulling him close. Then we fight for it. Like always, they made love that night, slow and reclaiming, bodies mapping forgiveness in the dark. But the seed of doubt took root, watered by distance. Charles left in August, duffel slung over his shoulder, Joseph's goodbye kiss lingering at the train station. Texts flew at first, nailed rehearsal. Miss your coffee breath, but calls grew sporadic, swallowed by late-night notes and cast parties. Joseph buried himself in work, expanding the firm with a green tech initiative. Harlan's old desk now his command center. Margaret noticed the hollowness, pressing pies into his hands. Go see him, fool. Love's not a postcard. He did weekend jaunts to the Windy City, where Charles transformed on stage. Raw, electric, Prior Walter's anguish pouring from him like confession. Backstage, amid makeup wipes and adrenaline highs, they'd steal hours in cramped apartments, bodies urgent, hearts sinking. This is us, Charles would murmur, tracing Joseph's jaw. Big world, bigger love, yet cracks spiderwebbed. Joseph's visits tapered, flu seasons, board deadlines, the house demanding paint and plumbing. Charles's responses sharpened. Again, Prior's dying alone up here. Guilt gnawed Joseph, but inertia held him fast. The comfort of routine a siren's call. November brought the storm. Charles called late, voice slurred from post-show scotch. Audition in New York. Big league. I think I'm going. Joseph's grip tightened on the phone, the kitchen clock ticking like a bomb. New York? That's permanent. It's opportunity, Joe. Growth. Isn't that what we fought for? Silence stretched. Then Charles's sigh. Heavy. Or is it still hiding? You? Here. Me. Chasing ghosts. The accusation landed true. Joseph's betrayal not in blackmail now, but complacency, the slow erosion of us into me. I can't uproot everything, he whispered. Not yet. Then don't. But don't ask me to wait forever. The line went dead, a void echoing Joseph's pulse. Panic propelled him to Chicago the next day. Unannounced, ticket clutched like a talisman. He found Charles at a dive bar near the theater, nursing a gin and tonic, ice-shadowed. Joe, he said, surprise flickering to wariness. What are you? I came to fight, Joseph interrupted, sliding onto the stool, heart hammering. For us. New York's scary as hell. But if it's your dream, he took Charles's hand, thumb stroking knuckles. We'll make it ours. Weekend commutes, sublets, whatever. Just don't go without me. Charles searched his face, tears brimming. You mean it? No more half measures. All in, Joseph vowed, sealing it with a kiss that tasted of gin and hope. They tumbled back to the apartment, shedding clothes and doubts, reaffirming in gasps and grips. Dawn found them tangled in sheets, plotting Joseph's remote work pitches, Charles's agent connections for East Coast gigs. But fate, that capricious director, had rewrites. A week later, as Joseph prepped board slides for hybrid viability, his phone rang, Margaret, voice fracturing. It's Lisa. Car accident. Bad, Joe. Come home. The drive blurred, rain lashing the windshield like accusations. Lisa clung to life in Indie General, pins and tubes her new companions, her ex-husband pacing the hall with blame in his eyes. Distracted, he snarled at Joseph. On the phone with you, arguing about wedding crap. Guilt crashed anew, Joseph's hand trembling as he stroked her bandaged one. Charles arrived by red-eye, folding into the vigil, his presence a bomb. Recovery was grueling, Lisa's legs shattered, therapy a marathon of tears and triumphs. Joseph and Charles rotated shifts, the house a revolving door of casseroles and cards. "This is family," Charles said one night, massaging Joseph's knotted shoulders. "Messy, but ours. Yet the delay cost." Charles's New York slot filled, the understudy bumped up. "LA's calling anyway," he joked, masking the sting, but Joseph saw the dimming spark. Resentment simmered. Unspoken, Joseph's rootedness a chain, Charles's ambition a sail straining at ropes. Climax brewed at Christmas, the first without Harlan, the house dressed in tinsel and tension. The family gathered, Margaret's turkey, Emily's pie, Haley's awkward teen poems, but Lisa's wheelchair shadowed the cheer. Over eggnog, Charles pulled Joseph aside. "I got the offer. Rent revival, national tour. Leaves in February." Joseph's chest tightened, the Polaroid from last year mocking from the mantel. "Tour? That's everywhere but here." Charles's eyes hardened. "Exactly. And you're still choosing here." "It's not choosing," Joseph hissed, voice rising. "Lisa needs me. We need stability. You need control." The words sliced, Charles's face crumpling. "I love you, Joe, but I'm drowning in us. I need air." The fight exploded in the kitchen, pots clanging as Margaret hovered unheard. "Go then," Joseph spat, betrayal twisting like a knife, Charles abandoning them, just as he'd feared. "Run to your spotlights. Leave the mess." Charles recoiled, hurt flashing. "This isn't leaving. It's living. God, after all this, the hiding, the blackmail, you still see me as the flight risk." He grabbed his coat, storming out into the snow. The doors slam a thunderclap. Joseph sank to the floor, sobs racking him, the family frozen in the doorway. Lisa wheeled in, gripping his arm. "Go after him, idiot. Love's not a cage." He did, barefoot into the flurry, spotting Charles's silhouette down the block. "Wait!" Joseph yelled, lungs burning. Charles turned, snow veiling his tears. "I'm sorry," Joseph gasped, collapsing against him. "You're not leaving me, you're saving me. From myself. Come back. We'll tour together. Sell the house. Chase the lights." Charles searched his eyes, then pulled him close, their breaths mingling white. "Promise. Swear it." They kissed, fierce and forgiving, the snow a baptism. But dawn brought reckoning. Charles's agent called, tour postponed, visa snag. "Fate's a bitch," Charles laughed. But Joseph saw the relief, the unspoken stay. Spring bloomed tentative. Therapy for Lisa. Therapy for them, couple sessions unpacking closets and compromises. "We're not fixed," Charles said one evening, sketching set designs on the porch. "But we're building." Joseph nodded, ring glinting as he laced their fingers. Louder every day. Yet the deepest betrayal waited in quiet moments. Joseph's hidden journal. Unearthed by Charles during a closet purge. Pages of doubt. Fears of not enough. Scrawled post Harlan. "You wrote this?" Charles asked. Voice small. Book trembling in his hands. Joseph paled. "Old stuff." Before. Before what? Acceptance. Hurt etched Charles's face. The ultimate wound. Love questioned in ink. "I thought we were past hiding." "We are," Joseph pleaded. But the trust fractured. Sessions doubling as they rebuilt from the words. Summer healed slow. A road trip to Detroit. Charles's mom hugging Joseph like kin. Belting defying gravity in her kitchen. "You boys got spark," she winked. Back home. They eloped quietly. Courthouse vows under July sun. Rings renewed. Autumn whispered peace. But life's drama peaks in valleys. Lisa walked unaided at Thanksgiving. The table groaning with thanks. As pie steamed, Charles raised his glass. To truths revealed. And the photos that set us free. Laughter rang. But Joseph's eyes met Charles's. A silent vow, no more shadows. The years folded like well-worn pages. Each turn a chapter etched in resilience. By 35, Joseph had pivoted the firm to sustainable tech. Solar panels sprouting on Bloomington rooftops like metal sunflowers. Harlan's legacy greened and alive. Charles, grounded yet soaring, directed local productions, the Laramie Project drawing crowds that spilled into the streets. Conversations blooming in lobbies about love's quiet wars. They adopted a rescue mutt named Pryor, all wiry fur and wagging defiance, who claimed the toolshed as his throne. Family wove tighter. Margaret downsized to a cottage, babysitting Pryor while they weekend warriored renovations. Lisa remarried, a quiet librarian with a laugh like wind chimes. Her wedding a boisterous affair where Charles emceed, Joseph DJing old Motown. Emily and Tom fostered, their home a whirlwind of tiny humans. Holidays a cacophony of spilled juice and joy. Even Mike resurfaced, paroled and penitent, AA meeting nod turning to coffee, his amends a bridge to Joseph's forgiveness. "Ruined myself chasing ruin," Mike admitted. "You built better, but romance, that tender pulse, demanded tending." Anniversaries marked milestones, the 8th with a recreated coffee shop date, lattes spilling deliberate as confessions, the 10th a Smokey's cabin, where they renewed vows by firelight, stars winking approval. Intimacy evolved, less frantic fire, more embers, lazy mornings tracing scars, both literal Lisa's limp and latent Joseph's doubts, Charles's wanderlust echoes. "You're my home," Charles murmured once, post-love haze. Wherever the road bends, drama resurfaced in ripples, not tsunamis. A church schism over Joseph's lifestyle, op-ed in the local paper, defending queer families, Harlan's words his compass, drew hate mail and hugs in equal measure. Charles shielded him with humor, scripting a one-man show out of the closet. Joseph cameo-ng as the straight-laced suitor, audiences roaring through tears. "Art as armor," Charles quipped, but privately, he confessed the toll. "Sometimes I miss the hiding." Simpler hurts. Joseph held him then, understanding dawning betrayal's echo in vulnerability. "We choose this. Every day." Therapy evolved to maintenance, unpacking not just pain, but privilege, the American dream they'd hacked. Gay and unapologetic, in a heartland that bent but rarely broke. Climax crested unexpectedly. A family reunion at the old VFW, 10 years post-revelation. The Polaroid, framed now on the mantle, Anchored the slideshow. Baby Joseph to wedding Joseph. Charles photobombed eternal. Laughter flowed, but Harlan's absence loomed. Until Margaret unveiled the surprise. A digital tribute. Harlan's voice rasping from recordings. Proud of my boys. Live loud. Tears fell, but so did toasts. Later, under the same string lights, Joseph pulled Charles to the dance floor, Sinatra crooning low. Remember that fight? Thought I'd lost you. Charles grinned, hand warm on his waist. Nah. You revealed me. Us. Yet the peak held a sting. Charles's big break. A Broadway associate director slot. Offered mid-spin. 6 months in the city, he said. Eyes searching. With you. Joseph's heart stuttered, roots tugging, wings beckoning. Together, he decided. The choice fluid now. They sublet. Pryor boarded with Lisa. The whirlwind a thrill. New York dazzled. Concrete canyons echoing their steps. Charles thrived. Joseph's remote set up a laptop in green rooms. Board calls from Central Park benches. But city grit ground. Anonymous slurs scrawled on posters. A producer's diversity hire jab at Charles. Fight or fold? Joseph asked. Rage simmering. Fight, Charles declared, channeling it into the show, a raw angels, queer joy defiant. Opening night, critics raved, but post-curtain, Charles collapsed. Exhaustion, a panic attack from the pressure cooker. Joseph held him in the alley, sirens wailing distant. I can't breathe, Charles gasped. You are, Joseph soothed, grounding breaths shared. We're enough. The run extended. Success a double-edged blade, offers flooding, but burnout nipping. They returned to Bloomington mid-season. Charles guest directing locally, Joseph expanding the firm eastward. Balance, they learned, the word a mantra. Betrayal's final ghost emerged in legacy. A letter from Harlan's old mill buddy, confessing he'd known, saw you two once, in the parking lot. Told Harlan to shut up and love, a quiet complicity in their secret. He protected us, Joseph realized. Tears for unspoken grace. Resolution settled like autumn gold. 40. They hosted a backyard pride, neighbors, family, the church allies who'd evolved. Pryor, gray-muzzled, lounged as ring-bearer for Haley's quinceanera. Margaret, silver-haired and sharp, cornered them. Your father's smiling somewhere. Damn fine men. That night, porch swing creaking, Joseph traced Charles's ring. Hid you once. Worth every reveal. Charles leaned in, kissed soft. And I'd hide with you again. But this us, out here, human as it gets. The story closed not in thunder, but hush, love's drama, emotional arcs bending toward light, humanistic in its flaws, betrayals mended, conflicts carved to strength. In America's heartland, two men built a life, photo by photo, truth by truth, forever framed. Epilogue whisper years on, the Polaroid yellowed, but the reflection shone. Ghosts no more, but guides.